Hi, this is Maria Lloyd with the Your Black World Network, and today I have Pastor Freddie Haynes on the line. Pastor Haynes, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Now, if you don't mind, could you tell our readers who you are and what you do?
Okay, I'm Frederick Douglass Haynes III. I'm senior pastor of the Friendship West Baptist Church. Also, I am considered by a number of people, including myself, to be a community activist. With that being the case, I serve on a number of boards that are engaged in social justice ministry, including serving as chairman of the board of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. Again, the thrust of our ministry has much to do with justice issues and community liberation and transformation.
So, Pastor Haynes, let me ask you a question. A lot of our readers, of course, have been reading and commenting on the catastrophic event that occurred last week. It's almost hard to believe that this has almost happened a week ago. But the situation that occurred in Newtown, Connecticut, of course, we all know the numbers. 20 elementary school students were killed. And I think it was 3 teachers, 1 principal, and then, of course, the shooter, he shot himself and he shot his mother.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because we've been getting a lot of questions about this, as you can imagine. And the thing that we keep hearing consistently from Christians or, even people who profess to not be into religion at all, why would God allow something like this to happen to so many innocent people? So I want to ask you, if you could, just give us, from your perspective as, a senior minister, if you could please share with us why you believe God would allow something like this to happen to those people.
And my answer, honestly, is I really don't know. I amplify that by saying that it hurts, it's heartbreaking, it's disturbing, it's confusing because there are no easy answers in all of this. As a matter of fact, I think it's healthy for us to ask questions. Some of us were brought up in situations where you don't question God, even though throughout Scripture, from Job to Jesus, God is being questioned when unspeakable, horrific evil takes place. And so I think it's appropriate that we raise the question. I think it's also appropriate that we understand that God may not be in the business of explaining what happened, but instead God sustains us through what happens and then creatively challenges us to bring good out of the bad that has happened. I'm not going to say God allowed it for this. God allowed the evil for good to come out of it, but I do know that God can take what was evil and somehow bring something good, healthy, and wholesome out of it so that we are better off, and the lives that were lost were not lost in vain, but instead they become the seed for the fruit of something that is good, something that is better, and something that perhaps would not have taken place had we not had this kind of, tragic episode to go on. So with that being the case, I am convinced that out of this, we can take another look at the fact that gun violence did not start in Connecticut there at Sandy Elementary School, but it is a part of the culture of this country. And if we don't address the culture, we set ourselves up for more consequences that are just like this. I'm hoping that people of faith and goodwill will say, now it's time for us to open our eyes to the fact that maybe there is something sick about this country that needs to be addressed, that needs to be healed, so that, again, God can take something that was totally evil and negative and unjust and somehow bring something positive out of it so that we recreate the culture that exists in this country because, again, it did not start in Connecticut. The sad reality is that what went down in Connecticut last week takes place over the course of a weekend in a city like Chicago, in cities like New Orleans, in the hood in Dallas. And so all of us who live in certain communities, we are sadly well adjusted, though we should be maladjusted, to a culture of death and murder and homicide. And I'm hoping and praying now that this country wakes up to the fact that you have civilized countries from Japan to England, whereby there is not a culture of gun violence because they have addressed the cause of it. And so I'm hoping and praying again that something spiritually healthy and good will come out of it, because God did not cause it. I'm not even going to say God just said go ahead and let it happen, but I will say that God is so good that what started out evil can somehow end up in a good place.
Okay, now that's a very interesting perspective, because I know, when you speak of culture in this country, President Obama, when he addressed the residents of Newtown, Connecticut, he specifically said that we need to work as a community to start raising our children. And, even if you are not, as Dr. Watkins oftentimes say, you don't have to have a child to be a parent. So I think that's very interesting that you kind of said, you're saying the same thing. And I do want to ask you just this final question about the tragedy. Do you think, or really about the culture, do you believe that violent video games, violent music, and movies that have violence in them, do you think that these things influence people like Adam Lanza?
Well, without question, you have a culture, and as far as I'm concerned, those are a part of the culture. And to me, they are a consequence of the culture. There is a culture in this country that has basically said we solve our problems with violence. And so, unfortunately, the young man who took all those innocent lives, and this is no excuse, please understand I'm saying that clearly, but he grew up at a time where he's known nothing but wars. This country has been engaged in war consistently, basically, since he's been alive. And again, there's a culture that says we solve our problems through violence. There's a culture that says you demonstrate your strength through violence. There's a culture that says you demonstrate your manhood even through your ability to handle a gun. And so from video games to the rap industry and I'm not going to even stop at the rap industry, because the rap industry gets unfairly miscast, but understand they are not the only ones who sing or engage in lyrics that are, violent. And so, but all of that is the result of what I believe is a culture that says we solve our problems by demonstrating our strength in a violent fashion. And so he grew up in that kind of culture, and I'm not going to even go there about the power of the NRA, but when you look at all of that, there's something to me that is sick and sinful about a nation that, glorifies strength, equating it with the ability to, hurt, kill, and mess over someone. I saw this video game recently, and I was watching kids play this video game, and I'm just asking myself, what message are the kids receiving as they play this violent video game, killing people for fun? And I'm sorry, but that's a culture that is not going to create the kind of consequences that we want. And as Dr. Watkins says, if all of us take the mindset, I'm a parent, regardless of the fact that someone may not be a part of my DNA. They may not be a child who deserves the future. When we take that into consideration, we will look holistically at addressing a culture that is geared more toward violence, death, and destruction than it is toward peace, wholesomeness, and growth.
Okay. All right. Powerful, powerful message. Pastor Haynes, could you tell people how they can stay abreast of what you're doing down there in Dallas or really across the nation? You have a website, any Facebook or Twitter accounts you'd like to share with us?
Oh, yeah. Follow me on Twitter, FHUnscripted, and then I'm on Facebook, FrederickDHaynes.org. Our services are streamed every week, and also we have an app And the app, of course, is Friendship West, and so you can follow us in a number of ways as we attempt to, on the one hand, speak truth to power, and at the same time give power to those who are powerless.
Pastor Haynes, thank you very much for joining us and sharing that very powerful message with us.
And thank you so much for this opportunity to share.
And readers, thank you for tuning in and choosing Your Black World Network to be your source for all news.